Rolling.
We just talked about that.
So, yeah.
Yesterday.
We did.
Rawhide.
So Jeff Buum is back in here. You want to tell us your title?
Sure. So I'm officially the branch sales and operations manager for a local branch here called the Heartland Branch for Fairway Independent Mortgage Corporation.
See how that rolls?
Just flies right off my tongue.
It does.
It's easy.
Yeah, it does. Then your other gig I wanted to talk about, Be Well, Be Active.
Yeah. So
Can we start with that?
Yeah, sure. So there's it's a side hustle.
Yeah.
There's a company out there. It's called LifeVantage, and it's a multi-level marketing company, and so its main focus is on science-backed products. The way I used to kind of explain it to people is like, hey, I go out and talk about products, and this company's so cool they pay me to do it. They'd pay you too if you wanted to do the same. But different than other companies, it's not all about, hey, you've got to go in and be a distributor or those types of things. The products are available for sale as well. And so my wife is really big into holistic and science-backed health and well-being products. So this is really right up her alley. I will sheepishly say that I'm kind of along for the ride on it, but it does really hit home for me on a lot of different levels. As far as not really big into medicine, and I will say it, I'm really safe to say it on this show, did not get vaccinated. I could almost say it perhaps maybe cost me my life almost. I don't know. I did get really sick with COVID, but still refusing to take the shots and those types of things. So, but it's not all about, just the medicine side of it. And this really isn't supplements either. This is basically products there to kind of help you not have to take supplements. So it can hit you really all the way down to the cellular level. And I think that's what was intriguing for me. So, I won't get into numbers and that sort of thing on how much we sell on a monthly basis, but we've got a good clientele base, and it continues to grow. So a lot of different products out there, from anything from activating your cells all the way down to shampoo and soap and products like that. The one thing I think a lot of people think of when you think about health and wellness is you think about diet and exercise. Kind of at the core level, that's where people go. But when you start to kind of peel that away and you start to look at it at a different perspective, you start to see that it's not just diet and exercise. We've got a lot of, I don't want to use the word toxins, so to speak, but there's a lot of things and chemicals that we have in our products today. And all of that puts stress on our bodies. And so over time, I think that, just the human condition has changed, especially in our Western diet and just living in America. Things look different and feel different. And so I'm really happy to be with a company as a side hustle that kind of works against all of that. And so it's a publicly traded company. It's not something where it's a big secret. I mean, you can go out, you can buy stock, you can do all those types of things. And it just continues to grow year after year. So it's one of those things, super proud of it, and just love the products as well.
That's great.
Yeah.
I like that.
And to kind of just add on to that too, I think it's what's brought it in is there's a community of people that just inside of Sioux Falls and some other areas that do what we do. And I think at a core level, all of us inside of ourselves, we need a sense of belonging, and we want to feel like we're part of something, and whether it's a movement or an organization. But having other like-minded people, just like this podcast, when you have like-minded people do things, it just makes it more fun, and having a feeling of involvement in it has been really cool. And when you get people that care about their health, the way that I do, you can talk about things at a different level where you can't with just the average Joe that's out there that says, hey, I try to eat better. I'd love to exercise. I'm probably not going to, but I created a goal in 2024 to try to look different by the end of the year. When you can get into deeper conversations, it's one of those things that I really enjoy, and so it really works as far as the people that I get to kind of congregate with and talk with about their health and wellness as well.
Do they have a toothpaste?
I'm not aware of a toothpaste. My wife has searched high and low, and now we have a toothpaste. I don't know if I could. I think it's Baca or Boca is what we use. It's one where it's keeps all those gross chemicals and things that you're probably going to find. And I don't want to sit and bash Crest and all these other companies, but they've served their purpose for a long time. But we use something that's cleaner and probably better for you is to putting in there.
No doubt. Well, that's the reason I asked is I watched a video of this doctor talking about the most dangerous aisle in the grocery store is the toothpaste aisle.
Right.
And that talking about fluoride, which is great for your teeth and terrible for your brain. Yeah, there's got to be a solution.
Yeah, and
it'd be a good product for them.
It is, and I'm sure there's probably something in development. Maybe there is one, but I don't think so. We'd probably be using it. But toothpaste is a big one. The other one too is deodorant. A lot of people don't think about it. You get your Old Spice or your By Men and all those types of things out there. That was basically the products that were out there for years and years and years. So we just get used to doing it, and I think all of us become loyal to brands. You can go for all kinds of things throughout the spectrum. Whether you go to a bar with somebody, they drink, that particular brand of beer. They like this particular brand of, soap, whatever. And so that we just become loyalists to some of these brands. And then there's other people that say, whatever on sale is I'm going to buy. But if you go down that toothpaste aisle or that deodorant aisle, and I would say hair products, shampoos, conditioners, all of that now has become just not good for you to have it touch into your body. And we put things in our armpits where you're really exposing ourselves right next to lymph nodes. We start putting things in our head.
Aluminum and
exactly.
Crap.
So we kind of we're forced to, I think, for a long period of time, to not have great alternatives. And today's market has a lot of great alternatives out there. And so we've kind of steered towards it. And, I think people in general probably say, I'm fine with what I have and I feel fine. You do. But when you have high cholesterol, you don't feel I got high cholesterol either. And sometimes things are happening inside of your body that you don't notice. And it takes time for us to experience something from whether it's disease or some other byproduct of an ailment that we have, because we've actually put just highly toxic stuff on our skin and our scalp and our mouth and all that stuff for years.
Sometimes you don't know you don't feel fine.
Right. And you do it every day.
It's your normal.
Yeah.
But
that's it. Yeah,
right.
It's normal.
It turned into your normal. Right.
And as I'm into my early 50s and you're into your 50s, you see it more and more now where people are like, I'm getting old, or hey, I've gained weight. My this is bad. These things don't feel right, and you just think that it's just part of aging. But I don't feel those things, and I'm in my 50s. But I think that I've chosen to live a slightly different lifestyle. It's not painful. It's not inconvenient. And I think this world has become about comfort and convenience. I like the same things too. I just choose to find something that isn't killing me. Slowly. I don't go and take bits of poison and just say, well, if I just drank a little bit of poison, I'm fine. Yeah, right, but I think that until you've looked at these other alternatives and experienced them and used them, you don't know how good you could actually feel until you've actually done it. And so I'm an advocate, and I encourage everybody. I'm like, stop using those things. I would even, if you look at let's just take, for instance, shampoo. And let's go back to when we were growing up. Let's just say the 70s. I would dare say that the product that we had back in, let's just use a Head and Shoulders, which became popular back then. I would dare say what was in Head and Shoulders in the 70s and what's in Head and Shoulders today is probably vastly different. Science has showed us a lot on not only on how to have things better, but it's also given us convenience to make things cheaper and maybe not as healthy for you as well. And so although the advancement in technology and the advancement in science has been super beneficial for us in so many ways, it's also been detrimental in other ways. And, you go from the products all the way to the food with the genetically modified seeds and all those things that we use. Our food is just vastly different. And it's probably been, talked to about death, but I don't know if that many people pay attention. And they think food is just food and don't really realize them. Like a lot of that stuff, if we really got to see where it all came from and how it started, you might not want to eat it.
Yeah, I agree. Well, that's a whole nother topic. You get into the genetically modified stuff,
right.
And it's like, well, what isn't, and where's that definition?
Right.
Everybody makes that sound like some kind of science that's bad for us,
right.
But have you ever seen like sketches of corn, like the way we found it?
Right.
It's like you couldn't feed yourself off of it.
Right.
Yeah, it's got 6 kernels, and where do we stop that?
Yeah, exactly.
And crossbreeding different plants, whatever that term is, but that's a good thing.
Right. And, at some point, I'd say probably, it's, if you go back 60s, 70s, and all of a sudden it became something where you got to feed the world, you have to. And the amount of, the population on the world doesn't stop. It continues to grow. So there's that many more mouths to feed. And a lot of people, I think, you're looking at the agriculture, it's like you've got to feed a massive amount of cows and chickens and pigs and all that different livestock that we eat, because we don't have the luxury or affordability or the space to say we're all going to be farmers anymore and just raise it and eat it ourselves. It just doesn't work that way.
Right.
Then you go to other parts of the world, they do. Some of that, what we would probably say is hunter-gatherer type of culture is still there, but you and I don't want to live in that.
No.
I don't want to be sitting somewhere in a semi-desert type of climate wearing a loincloth, going out and farming and hunting every single day. It's like that lifestyle doesn't sound fun to me either. So
it comes down to it. I think science is our friend in the ag world. Well regulated,
right?
Let's look into it. But there are parameters. If things are staying on our food, that's bad for us.
Right.
Okay, we're doing it wrong.
Right.
But
yeah, and
there's ways to be more efficient and
right.
get a little more yield.
Yeah, there's only so much pasture ground that we have today, so we've kind of created the environment. It just kind of has happened.
Yeah.
And how do you reverse all of that? I don't know. I don't know if you ever can, but if you start talking about meat and those types of things, I try to find something that's more organic, but what does that mean? We don't really know where it is. So until you are like, I'm going to raise them on my own and then butcher them, and I know exactly where it came from, you really don't know. Because it showed up in a package that was vacuum sealed or was saran wrap on it. And you've got what you've got, and you hope that it's there, and you paid $3 more per pound. So you're hoping that it's better. But I think that if you try some of those things versus what you see in a regular store, some cases you do notice a difference in taste. And if you go out, and you and I like to go out and hunt, you shoot deer, pheasants, geese, all those types of things too. And guess what they're eating? What's out in the fields.
A lot of times,
so, it's like what we thought was organic or natural. Is it?
Yeah.
Because it's kind of the same thing that what your livestock is eating too. So how do you get away from all of it? I don't know. But there's a lot of information that's coming out and a lot of misinformation. And I think it just depends on which maybe side of the aisle on some things, or maybe even comes to like, what camp are you in? Is this stuff safe or not? But the amount of disease and things that are happening to people on a regular basis, there's got to be something to it on what we're ingesting, and whether it's on our skin or something we're putting in our mouths. There's something to it, and I think that we just keep uncovering things as we go.
Yeah, right.
And if you look to it, like now the competition for things out there is so great, from drinks and stuff. I just saw something recently. There's a drink that's got aloe in it, and so that's kind of becoming a hot thing. Like, hey, aloe, we love aloe. Let's drink that. And so somebody puts it on social media, and I always think social media is a great place to find out about things because there's so many people and everybody's willing to. I do not love responding unless it's something near and dear to my heart. Mm-hmm. I love looking at the comments. I just don't like to put them out there. I've got other better things to do with my life than make cheap shots or comments on stuff. But it is fun to look through it. So this aloe drink, I've got some friends up in North Dakota, and someone said, "Hey, this aloe drink is great," and someone else I know said, "Oh my gosh, they taste fantastic." Well, I went and researched it, and I said, I hope they do. They got 32 grams of sugar in them.
Yeah.
It's almost like drinking a Coca-Cola.
Of course they taste good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like, we want the aloe, but then you take the sugars part of it as well. And it's like, when you start breaking that down, you're like, well, I'm feeding my cancer cells, but I am getting some aloe as well. So where do you find the balance to try take all of this stuff in? I don't know, but I feel like I've put my best foot forward by joining a company like LifeVantage, where we've got alternative products that, one, they're likable. You can see some results. They're science-based. And then also, there's a product called Axio that they taste good. There's some flavors that aren't maybe for my palate, but they are for others. And there's some that are for me, but it doesn't have all the extra sugar. You can get it with caffeine, which I know Jim's a big caffeine guy, so you can get caffeine.
My stimulants.
Yep, likes the stimulants. You can get the caffeine. It does give you a bump. I recommend you drink them with 20 ounces of water. The first few times I tried them, it's powder form. You put it in, you mix it up, and you take a shot. You'll get flush in the face. I mean, there's enough vitamin B bump and caffeine bump in there that you'll get a little jacked up. So I like it for pre-workout. With the caffeine, but it also gives you some brain clarity too. So just all kinds of stuff. I'm not going to dive into all the products, but
Sure.
If someone's interested in it, reach out to me and I can tell you more. And I always say, I throw it out there, and it's for someone else to jump in or jump out. It's not for me to sell somebody. It's for how serious do you want to take your health?
Yeah, exactly. Now you got my curiosity going on aloe and what that does for you. What do they claim it does ingesting it? Well,
aloe, I think it became super popular when, sunburns, because, there was a huge fear, and here's another topic that I could probably spend an hour talking about, but, once again, hey, you got a sunburn. Now we think that you got a sunburn, you do that too many times, you're going to get skin cancer. Mm-hmm. Well, I think if we look over time, hundreds and hundreds of years, was everybody dying of skin cancer at one point in our life? Do we have a massive skin cancer issue with people that live close to the equator? No. They're getting natural sun all of the time. And me being a man of God, I don't think God said, I want to create skin, and then I want to put this awesome thing out there, that vitamin D that makes you feel good and all the things that help us wake up, our circadian rhythms and everything, and go by it. But on the same token, it'll kill you when you get too much of it. So I think that there's a method of maybe burning yourself continuously that maybe could give you some skin defects that maybe eventually would lead to some sort of a cancer. But I think that's where aloe really kind of showed up. People would get sunburn, and you put it into your skin, and it would soothe it.
Done it many times.
And try to keep the moisture in it and do all those things. And I think that's where if you ever talked about aloe, it was always something that you put into your skin. It's probably a safe environment. Sunscreen, on the other hand, what the heck's in it? So you dump it in. Now there's a bunch of people coming out and saying the actual sunscreen is what's causing skin cancer. So to me, I haven't used sunscreen for, I don't know how many years, and I don't own a boat anymore, but when I did, go out in the summer, it's like if you slowly work your way into the sun and get that base tan. I mean, this isn't some sort of magic secret. I think most people know if you guide yourself into it. And if you go out there and want to spend 5 hours in the sun for the very first time in May, you're going to get burned. You're going to feel horrible. But if you slowly work your way into it, there becomes a point where once you've got a tan, it almost becomes hard to burn because your skin's like, okay, I know what that is, and I can absorb it, and I'm fine with it. And so I really don't use any of it. But I think that's where aloe got its foothold into that. And similar to liquid collagen, what we were talking about earlier before the podcast, with the skin being the largest organ that's really on your body. And if you look inside of the skin, our internal organs and all of that, well, what keeps all of those things in? It's skin. It's another form of it. It just is different from what we have here. But all of that between the collagen and the aloe, the collagen is what we produce ourselves. We don't produce aloe, but we do produce collagen. Over time, just like a faucet, it can produce it at a high level where you've got the full stream going. And as you start to turn the dial back with our age, then all of a sudden the stream isn't as strong, and then it becomes a trickle. And so liquid collagen, what it does is actually helps you create new collagen, but then it also helps you maintain what you have, and then also will help you replenish it. So there's been powders out there and all that stuff for a long time, and I used them for years. Didn't notice a dang thing. I went to liquid collagen, and then I started to see results, amazing results. As we said before, skin, nails, hair is where you see it. Physically you can see it, but I'm someone that was an athlete for a long time, did triathlons, ran probably, I'm going to guess 3,000 to 4,000 miles in about a 10-year span, and now doing a lot of resistance training. I should be beat up, having 4 years of college football and all that type of stuff, but I don't feel it. And when I started taking it, I'm not making any claims to say that this does all of this, but I started to sleep better as well. Aloe, on the other hand, is not something that our body produces. Like you said, it's something that it's out there, comes from the aloe plant, and we use it on a topical sense. And so I think that the theory or the science behind that, you ingest it, and similar like collagen, it also works internally as it does as well as externally. If you're putting it on your skin, put it inside, and then have the aloe probably work from the inside out. So, I'm not going to say that I'm not on board with aloe. I'm not on board with consuming a Coca-Cola in hand with it.
Yeah. I got you. Yeah.
It's like, so what's the point? If I'm doing something really horrible for me at a cellular level, but I'm also going to take the aloe, like, doesn't make sense.
How's that wash out?
Right. Yeah, I want a blood sugar spike while I do it, and so that my body's just going through all. Yeah, I'm doing all these things
for 40 minutes.
Let's throw some caffeine in it as well, and let's just hit all the bases that we can. So I think that everybody's out there trying to get into these markets and find that, hey, we got this product, but once you start to really peel back the ingredients, and as I said about social media, to hear the comments, you get to see how misinformed or uneducated people become, where it's like, yeah, I know there's some carbs in it, but other than that, I think it's pretty healthy. Like, we've totally missed the sugar part, and we're worried about carbs. It's as if carbs was somehow it's going to kill us all. I'm like, a bunch of the stuff that we eat on a regular basis has carbs in it. I mean, if you're going to eat fruits and vegetables, you're like, well, it's got carbs in it. But other than that, I think it's pretty healthy. Yeah. It's like, well, that is kind of the point of eating that stuff. So there's just, it's unfortunate, but we get more concerned about so many other things, and not saying that money's not important, but we get more concerned about our money than we do our health. Mm-hmm. And I've always found that's, we'll prioritize that over our health, or educate ourselves more on business versus what we educate ourselves in our health. And what's the thing that can be taken away easier, our business or our health? Mm-hmm. Which could someone steal from us? It's hard for someone to come steal your health away, but everything else that you own could be. But we'll focus more on that type of stuff than we actually do, like, how is our whole body and what are we doing to it? Mm-hmm. Starbucks is a classic example of that. That's one that I've always been like, I'll go drop $4 or $5 a day on sugary coffee. Yeah, and at the end of the month, I'm $300 deep in Starbucks. I will not give that up but I don't want to spend any money on anything else that, as far as any products. So just, it's a priority, and everyone's got their priorities. But I think for the most part, people are unwilling to sacrifice products like that for products that would actually benefit you for the long term.
Yeah, I agree.
Diet and exercise, the fact of the matter is most people won't do either, but they're unwilling to take them. Like, hey, you don't have to sweat. You could take a pill, you could take a liquid collagen, you could take these types of things that would do it, but I'm not going to do that. I'd rather go and grind on a treadmill for an hour, and that sort of thing. Exercise is a whole nother conversation. I could spend hours on that too, of what we consider exercise and not exercise too. But I don't know if you want to go down that road. You're a guy that used to work out a lot.
Yeah. And I'm still
you still do
5 days a week, typically. Coming off the holidays, I slacked a bit, but.
Are you feeling fat and sassy? That's my question.
Fat for sure.
Not so sassy?
A little sassy. But, yeah. We talked about that yesterday. If nothing else, I'm stretching.
Right.
And that's what everybody should do, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I'm not a trainer. I'm not a doctor, but it kind of makes sense.
Yeah. The easiest thing you could do.
Yeah.
And I still think
it affects everything. And like I say, you do that, and all of a sudden you're taking the stairs faster.
Yep.
You're getting a little more done every day. It just compounds.
Right.
Everything becomes a little easier. But, with my knees and stuff, that's where the whole collagen thing came up. This is my joints hurting. And so now stretching is just survival.
Right. And I think it's important, most people are like, well, I don't like to exercise. I'm like, well, stretching, depending on your shape, and I'm not meaning your what shape you're in. It could be round. It could be pear.
Pear is a shape, right? Yeah.
So sometimes stretching for someone that's very inflexible or has gained a lot of weight, in whether it's the midsection or whatever, it can be uncomfortable and actually make you sweat because, but there's stretching. I always say the mobility in your hips is really important because we don't do it in our normal lives. Look at my shoulder injuries. You get people in their 50s and 60s and shoulders are like, oh my gosh, my shoulder, I need shoulder surgery. You're like, when does anyone ever stretch their shoulders out? And I'm like, but you should.
Yeah.
And hips and knees and ankles, I'm like, those are things that you would use for the rest of your life. And yet you just kind of sit in the chair, you come home and you sit, and a lot of sitting. And I'm like, to have your hip flexors and those things be pliable is really important. And, all the injuries that you have from your lower back, someone says, hey, I went and did a run and I just, they're out playing with their kids or whatever, pull hamstrings or blow their Achilles tendons and stuff. It's like, it all goes back to stretching.
Yep.
And so it's
I agree.
Doesn't take a ton of time. And would you agree if you stretch, it's probably just as much for you mentally as it is for you physically?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah, if nothing else, I get in the gym. And some days, like after I had this holiday break, the whole first session or two, just stretching.
Yeah.
I'll stretch for an hour and a half, full body. But,
well, and walking, you go to any gym. I don't go to a gym. I've got what I do at home. And then I like to use the natural resources that are out there. But you go to a gym on January 2nd, every treadmill is just packed. Yeah. And what are they doing? They're walking. Mm-hmm. It's the gateway of how do I get myself back into shape? And unfortunately, walking is the gateway where it's like, that is your basic means of transportation that you've been given since, well, not birth because you crawled first, but you've been walking since you were, such an infant. Mm-hmm. And you're like, walking is how we now get started back into exercise. And
we pay for it.
Yeah.
We
to
pay
go
to
on
walk.
Can't do it outside because I'm going to be uncomfortable due to the weather. Mm-hmm. But the fresh air
and get sunshine.
Yeah, and it's sunshine, the fresh air, and then the piece of it being outside, where if you're in the treadmill, TV's going, people all around you, a lot of noise. I don't think you get the mental aspect of it when you go into the treadmill, and it's like, gosh, we got people that are starting over with walking, and most of them can't get past, to February 1 just walking on a treadmill. But I think that they don't get I don't want to use the word addicted, but I don't think that people get excited about the walk because they go to the treadmill and it's almost chaotic in there, and there's smells and music playing, and
I hate it.
It might not be your music.
I start a new program, and it always said I'll go hit the machines and do cardio, and it lasts about a week and a half for me, and then I'm lifting weights. Yeah.
And so it is not to discourage. So if you're out there and you're like, hey, I'm starting my new 2024, I'm not saying don't go do these things. Movement is important, but man, for walking, I've always said, is that really exercise? To me, it's like you were kind of given that ability just to go move around and go explore. Yeah. It shouldn't really be exercise. It should just be something that you do. But we start there. And I remember one time someone asked me when I was running a lot, and they said, how do you do it? And I'm like, well, what do you mean? How do I do it? It's like, you just go run. And they're like, oh gosh, it just is so boring. And I'm like, it's the time where I get to spend however long I'm going to go just between my own ears. I get to listen to me for the first time, and my self-talk could be negative or it could be positive. And so like you can get in your head and go anywhere you want, negatively or positively, but you're in your own head if you don't take the earbuds and you do all the things, but you get to go out and just have nothing for a while. And there's a lot of peace to that. And what's funnier yet is the same person that said, man, I don't know how you do it. The next thing I know, lost 15 pounds or whatever. I said, hey, you're looking really good. What have you been doing? I've been walking. Okay, so running was absolutely the most boring thing you could ever do, but walking is super exciting.
Yeah.
And another guy told me, man, I can't run. It's just horrible. I don't know why you go out there. It's like, I'd rather go do a bunch of other stuff. And so the guy was just golfed all of the time and smoked cigarettes and drank beer the entire time he golfed. So I'm like, it wasn't boring. Like golf is this super high intense activity that you're doing because that, it's fun filled and all these amazing things are happening on the golf course. But it was like, you need an activity where you can smoke and drink along with it as well.
Yeah, right.
So it's like we justify and come up with a lot of different ways of why we don't want to do anything. And I'm not a big proponent of running any longer. I did it for probably about a decade. And then we talked about this yesterday where I started to look deeper into the running. And, it actually causes chemical reaction inside of your body and releases drugs like cortisol. And then the other part of it is estrogen. And so I was always like, why can't I lose any more weight? You have an initial weight loss that's there, but then you still don't look right. I mean, it's like you feel like you should look more like a marathon runner. Mm-hmm. Well, at 6'3", 235, I certainly didn't look like a marathon runner, and I started to dig deeper. And the really good marathon runners actually work to try lose muscle mass to stay that super lean and twig-like. Yeah, sure. Which I don't want. That's not my goal, and I never would want to look that way anyway. But certainly, I don't feel like my body shape really works that way. But it was releasing these chemicals that kind of keep the belly fat on you, and then as a man, you don't want the breasts that come along with it, which most guys start to inherit or get. And so, the resistance training changed it. And, within a short, probably about a 6-month period, had lost 10 pounds, gained muscle. And it wasn't like I was doing something different. Mm-hmm. The diets kind of stayed on it. And I'm not one like, I'll eat a donut, I'll eat pizza. It's like, I'm not super strict on it. I avoid things, but it's not like I don't like when someone goes, hey, you're eating that's got sugar in it. I'm like, I didn't say that I never eat sugar. I'm like, I'm still going to treat myself from time to time, but I just don't do it on a regular basis. But lost the weight and started to gain lean muscle mass, just changing what I was doing. And I can do a hell of a lot more in 45 minutes of resistance training than I ever did going to a 45-minute run. and feel a lot better.
Yeah, I do too when I do that.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, and I like activities where you're just having fun. Yesterday, but we put 1.5 miles on or something.
Yeah.
Pulling a sled,
Right.
and walking through snow and walking across ice, and it's a fairly physical day, but there you go. You don't know it's not going to the gym. It's not getting on a treadmill. It's not, we had a different mission, and I like that kind of stuff.
Right.
That's why I loved surfing. It wasn't like, what a great motion surfing is, paddling all the time, kicking, swimming. But it's not why I was out there, and
Right.
I was staying lean and getting in shape while I was having fun doing something. Dirt biking too.
Right.
Of course, that's one of the activities that's got my joints beat up. But
So you were
I
working
did it
core.
aggressively. But
Yeah, your core muscles, balance, and all those things are constantly being
that's one of the
worked.
best ones. If you're riding properly,
Right.
so hand and foot contact on your pegs and your handlebars, not on your ass. You're not
Right.
really dirt biking if you're using the seat. So it's one of the most aerobic things you can do, and it works your entire body.
Right.
If you're riding that way, you're out just trail riding,
Right.
putt.
And not everybody has access
still
to
fun.
it or wants to. I had someone in my office here recently, and we do a lot of talk about personal goals and those types of things. But so it's business, but it's also on the personal. And I said, hey, we're a couple weeks into January. You had some ideas that you wanted to do something, and I always say I want to feel better or I want to look better. I'm always like, don't use the word better because it's such a vague thing. What is it you want to accomplish? It helps you find something like, what are you trying to do to your body to find, like, where's the measure? How do you measure it? How do you know when you've gotten feel better? How do you know when you
what
look
does that
better?
mean?
What does that mean? Because the clothes fit better. Because you're not going to, the button's not going to pop off once you got them on, or like, what is that? And so what are you doing to, to try, to feel better, look better, whatever? I'm doing push-ups, sit-ups, and then squats. No weights involved, but just doing those 3 things. And she's similar age to me at 53. And so I said, okay, well, how are those going? And I'm like, what's your goal with these things? And she said, well, I want to be able to do 50. Like in a row or 50 in a day? Like, what does it mean? No, I'd like to be able to do 50. And so we're just going through a different conversation. And I said, so why 50? What is it with that number? Why isn't it 47? Why isn't it 100? Why is it always why do we always think in numbers where it's always an even number and what's 50? Well, I don't know. It just seemed like that would be a good number for me to shoot for. I'm like, were you going into a competition where you need to do 50? No. Then I'm like, then what is it? And so we started to break this down more, and I'm like, do you even like it? They're like, why are you doing this? Why, this is, I think, to help me get in shape. So if I'm just doing push-ups every day and I'm just doing squats and I'm doing sit-ups, I'm expecting some massive changes in my body. And I'm like, do you like yoga? Yeah, I love yoga. Well, then why wouldn't you go do yoga? If you want to build some strength, you want to build some flexibility, build some mobility, and you love it, and what else does it do for you, like in here and in here? She's like, oh, it just is tremendous. Then why in the world are we doing push-ups and sit-ups and crunches?
Exactly.
And she says, yeah, I hate doing those things. Let's not go do something that's torturous. Let's go do something that we love to do. And surfing and motorbiking was your thing. Mm-hmm. It was an exercise to you, but it was
8 hours of beach volleyball.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so
Wasn't
it's-
out there to get in shape. It happened.
Find something
fun.
where it's
Yoga's
not
a
a
cool
chore.
one.
Yeah.
That back at the P90X days, remember when that was out?
Oh, yeah.
Tony Horton.
I did some of that, actually.
I
yeah.
did too. And yeah, I bought that series and it just intimidated the hell out of me. And I was like, I'm just going to jump to the yoga one. It sounded like the easiest one.
Right.
Kicked my ass.
Horrible.
Oh, was
Very
rough.
hard.
Yeah.
I
Super difficult.
I pulled a groin. Like the first or second time I did the yoga, I didn't realize how out of balance I was with my abductors. You don't really use it unless you're like getting into deep squats and those types of things. You're really never using the inner part of your thighs. And so, like what you were talking about, you go through and you're doing. I mean, I'm trying to think. There was ones where you were kicking. It was kickboxing. There was one with push-ups and some of these other things, pull-ups, and it's like, well, if you needed it, like, well, where am I doing pull-ups at? Aerobics.
When's the last time you tried burpees?
Right.
Oh,
yeah.
Whoop your ass.
Kick your ass. So I thought the same thing. I'm like, what I've been doing is, well, the kick thing, now you're actually like, if you haven't stretched your groin out, you're going to go up and try to do a side kick. Yeah. You're asking for trouble. And you're like, oh, ow. Well, I decided that one day I was training for a triathlon. And so I was running a lot, biking a lot. And so now I'm starting to work parts of my legs that just typically haven't been used. And I thought, gosh, what would be lighter on my body is to do yoga. And you go into like your warrior pose, and then you go all these different ones. And I got stretched out, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh my God, just felt the groin just go, that's not a position that you're used to being in. Yeah. But tremendous way to get yourself. And that's the one thing where if it was like January 2nd, if you could convince everybody, like, don't go to the gym, don't save your money. Like, go buy a video, sit in your house, get something that motivates you to actually turn it on and do it. But start there. I'm like, I just think the people would be more apt to stay on track if they went to the yoga thing and then realize like what it does internally for you too. There's just so much more growth that's there than sitting there and hammering out some miles on a treadmill, talking to your friend that's next door or listening to some podcast or something. I'm like, it's not there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's you're going to fail. I'd be sorry, but most people are. That's a tough thing to just go do every day.
Right.
Really tough.
In January in the Midwest as well. I want to get out of my warm bed, go in a cold car, and then go into the gym, come back out into the cold, then go home and go get ready and go to work. It's like there's just a lot of things in there that you can talk yourself out of. Getting up earlier, or maybe you go after work, but then you're like, oh, I'm hungry. I skipped lunch today. And there's a million reasons why it's not going to work. Oh, if NFL playoffs are on, they start at 3:30 today. I better go home and watch that.
Yeah. There's too many stumbling points, too many intersections where you have to make the right choice rather than just do it.
Here's an interesting fact about gyms. Not Jim Nelson's or gyms. I'm talking GYMs. Did you know those are like the hottest place to go break into people's vehicles and steal all the stuff?
Really?
Yes. I found this out when we were living in Fargo. So a couple times I was in the gym, 5-6 days a week, and I like to go in the mornings because that way I don't have any excuse that I didn't nothing gets in the way on your schedule. So I'd go in, and all of a sudden one time I noticed there was a cop car sitting in the parking lot. And I thought, well, what's that? Maybe someone got hurt and an ambulance is on its way. I went in, gym was regular, nothing changed. And I thought, well, that's kind of a weird place for a cop to be sitting, like, unless, something happened and they needed to call the cops, and maybe I just missed it. And then I heard on, it was either social media or the news, somewhere along the line, they talked about all of the parking lots. All the cars are getting ripped off. People go at 5 in the morning, 6 in the morning, think, I don't need to lock my vehicle. It's early in the morning. Who's going to go and break in? And you're in Fargo in the wintertime. No one's out walking around there scouting out the parking lots because it's, 5 below. Mm-hmm. Well,
they're in there for an hour.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You sit at the parking lot. There's a bunch of cars there. You can sit in there. Nobody's paying attention. And it's normal for someone to be sitting in their car. They're either going to go in the gym or they're going to leave. So you pay no mind to it. They're scouting who just went in. I know they're in there for a while. I get out. I go check the handles, take the stuff, throw it back in my car. And if it's coming out of the glove box or maybe back seat, you don't even know that it was missing. And away they go. And it was surprising like how many people left their purses. Wow. And so there was people getting ripped off. So I think it was a clan of people that knew we're hitting Fargo this week. So gym by gym, and by the time this all catches on, they've already cleared, 4 or 5 gyms in 2 days, and they're off to the next town. So it became a thing. They were like, hey, in this area, there's a group coming through, lock your doors. It's amazing to me, like how smart criminals are. Yeah. But it was so obvious once you looked at it. You're like, oh, this is just easy pickings for them. So if you're going to the gym, you're on your New Year resolution, lock your vehicle, make sure your stuff is safe.
Yeah, I always think about that with criminals and the thought that goes into crimes sometimes. It's like, you could just have a good job or start a business if you're putting that much thought and energy into something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're into traveling and going from town to town, there's all kinds of jobs. You can go drive around and do, sales counts. Just go stop by, say hi. You're making money. Every other, you travel all over the state if you want to.
Yeah.
Or you can go hit the gyms.
Yeah. That made me think about go to the thrift store if you're up here in the Midwest and get some cross-country skis. There you go. Now you're out getting fresh air.
Another way to do it.
Yeah,
I don't know if they really grew many trails around here,
I'll bet there are.
You would think. I think if you went down to in Sioux Falls here on the old Yankton Trail, I've gone down there quite a bit. When I was living in Sioux Falls, I liked when there's all the snow and they don't even clear it off. Not very many people are down there. They're using them, and then once they start to melt, they freeze over and get slippery. So there's not as much people down there as long as you can stay some traction, which now I have a new way of keeping traction thanks to Jim, the little hex screws in the bottom of my boots.
Studs.
Yeah, I was using them last night. It worked out great. But to go down there, you'll see where cross-country skiers, a lot of times, if there's not massive amount of snow or drifts, they're out there. Then I think that they create the path, and then the next skiers use them, and then it starts to go somewhere. But I don't know. That's one where I think you'd have to kind of know what you're doing, maybe a little bit to go do it.
A little bit. Yes.
It's you'd kind of have to have some shape.
I might have kept up to you yesterday if I had skis on.
Yeah.
Right? You're definitely the right guy for pulling a sled.
Well, we need to get back, but it was. We got out there a little farther than a half a mile. That was for sure.
Yeah.
The beauty about pulling that sled was once you got to glare ice, it was literally like there was nothing behind you. Any momentum.
Well, you end
kept
up
it going.
shopping carting your own ankles.
Yeah,
it'll catch up to you.
Yep, you'd hit yourself in the back of the legs, and then once the snow came, it was. I grabbed behind my wife last night, and I grabbed her shoulders, and it was kind of like this. Pulled her. She's like, I get it.
Yeah, glare ice. Those skis go real easy.
Yeah,
I always had a missed opportunity that I was thinking about yesterday when we were coming back off of the lake that I had walked all the way across Diamond Lake in Minnesota. High wind, glare ice, no snow on it. And it was directly into the wind to go to this spot that I fished. So it was a straight downwind shot back to the launch where my truck was. And I just missed that opportunity. I was using a flip over house, and just to stand in the sled and pull that thing up, just set my spinnaker and let it take me home. And I so regret that I didn't give that a try.
It definitely would have done it too.
Oh, I think I would have done 17 miles an hour all the way back to the truck.
We were on Lake Ponce last winter, I think, and there was a massive snowstorm to come through, and the winds were blowing. Like there was people out on that were ice fishing that basically like we had to stay out on the ice. They were sending reports like we can't see. There's no way we would know how to get back to the loading area, the old ramps and stuff, or the access to get on the lake. They couldn't see. And whatever reason, we had decided to go up to Ponce and go fish. And so my friend had his ice castle pulling behind it. And it was glare ice out there, and the wind was blowing so hard that I looked in the rearview mirror. I said, "You got to turn your wheel." It was actually starting to jackknife, and it had total control over that ice shack.
Yeah,
it was blowing it all over the place. So when we finally stopped, we had to make sure we had at least one set of tracks or wheels on some snow. And then I stood, and it started to push. So I'm holding on. Like, I got to find snow for my feet just to keep it from blowing you over. Yeah. But yeah, it's amazing. Once you get on that ice, if you don't have any traction, that wind can take you anywhere it wants to.
That day that I should have set sail, that most of the walk back, my sled was next to me. Yeah, I wasn't pulling it. It was just cruising along next to me.
Right.
Well, I told you that. That's why I said it that way. You know, you want to go have an ice adventure because it's always an adventure.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yesterday that ice was cracking, so it just continuously thunder going on.
What we got out
and
there,
that might have been why the fish thing wasn't really happening.
could
too.
be. What was it? Probably 5 below when we got out there
Yeah.
with some wind. Yeah. So there's the ice was definitely
You were talking.
yeah, it was talking. It gets a little nervy at times when you're sitting there and you feel like the crack was right below your feet.
Oh, and it is. You felt them. Yeah, that one I told you about, that one that came through when I was on Mille Lacs, 3 feet of ice probably, but it scared me right off my chair. And I heard that crack coming from a half mile away. It rolls just like thunder, and it's coming, and it just boom through the hole, and there's waves in the hole, and it scared me right off my chair. I jumped backwards, and then I laughed at myself. But
So how many inches of ice does it take before you feel comfortable driving a vehicle out on it?
depends. Good ice, and there's a difference.
Yeah.
If it's been made properly, it's clear, it's solid, and well, I don't want anybody to just use my rule of thumb. Don't go driving on ice unless you know what you're doing.
Disclaimer time.
Yeah.
Jim's just giving his personal opinion.
The Scooby-Doo, I'm going to want to see 13 to 16 of good ice.
Yeah.
I'm really cautious with that. So, and you saw how many times I checked on that trip yesterday.
Yeah.
It was 3/4 of a mile probably, I'm guessing.
Right.
We went out.
Yeah, about every 100 to 200 yards to stop and dig a hole and look at the ice and
A week
see how
and a
deep
half
it was.
ago, a mental note, I scouted for several weeks. And, I was aware of, okay, now we're at the point where a week and a half ago, there was 100 geese swimming right here. I'm checking.
Yeah.
But we stayed good. I think our thinnest spot was 10,
Yeah.
probably.
Yeah,
Otherwise,
it
it
was
was more
pretty
like a
thick.
foot.
Yeah. I'm sure you've seen
That's four-wheelers, no
Right.
problem with that.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've seen plenty of it. Being a guy who spends time out on the ice, I have most of my ice fishing adventures. Every once in a while, February where there's a lot of ice, go into the ice castle type of adventures. I've been out with sometimes when the weather wasn't bad with just the clam, but not an experienced ice man veteran like yourself. Mm-hmm. How many friends or how many times have you seen or people that have experienced where their truck went to the bottom of the lake?
Well, you see it every year.
Yep.
Every year. Personally, no. I know my buddies, I think they got video of it too, that out like on a spring day and got real warm. And then it ended up, all that center lake ice was still good, but it melted around the shore.
Edges.
Yeah, so they had to just like wind those four-wheelers up. They were in their trucks, but just hit it hot and just blast across the water. But yeah, I went through years ago, real cold day, sub-zero, 15 below, probably somewhere in there. Good ice on this slough that I was down on. I was checking an open spot, and I had my bow with me, and so I was bow fishing, and skirted around that, and should have been good. I ran into a beaver run where beavers use it as under the ice trail. Well, that was thin ice, and I blew through that. Luckily caught myself. So I never did feel bottom. Got pushed back up, but I was a long way from my vehicle. And so I had to make a decision. Do I go for the car, or do I go across the slough over to the woods and get a fire going? And I had matches on me that I had waterproof. Checked those. They were dry, and I went for the woods. And, this is one of those, had all we always called it tundra gear, my Carhartts and multiple layers, and I was pretty bundled up, but I was soaked through past my waist. And even crossing that slough, that starts turning into a hard shell. Can't bend your knees. And I get over there, get all my kindling and stuff piled up, and I'm trying to light matches. And I have to have my gloves off. I had big choppers on. And, take those off. Well, I got down to the last match, and I couldn't feel my hands anymore. I couldn't. It was like trying to light a match with 2 baseball bats, and I get the last one took, and I just stoked that fire. It was 12 feet high, and just hung out there for a couple of hours. But I probably wouldn't have made it out. Probably not. Down to the last match.
With the fire going, then I'm assuming you stripped off all the wet stuff, or did you stand? Were you able to
I just kept turning and drying out.
Yep.
Warming up. Yeah, got that outer shell to dry off. Obviously wet down in
so you kept it
the
on.
long johns and stuff. But
I suppose at 15 below, like you probably couldn't really expose your skin after you'd been wet either.
You don't want to do that.
Put yourself in trouble.
I got that fire just cooking. Stoked it. And yeah.
Well, lucky enough that there was stuff there that you were able to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, I used dry weeds. It was my base kindling, and then twigs But then once it took off, then I couldn't pile enough wood on it. And big bed of coals, and got pretty well dried out. I spent a couple hours down there just drying and warming my backside, and then turn around until I figured I could make that walk out. And that was another half mile further. So choosing to go to the woods made me another half mile away from my vehicle.
Right. Like now you've just set the path where this could end really badly, but it seemed like the better of the two options.
If I wouldn't have got that last match, she might have been rough.
I had a friend, it was the guy that I showed you yesterday that caught the 14-pound walleye, and he was up on Waw Bay. And I can't remember if he was fishing or duck hunting. It was November, so there was still open water, but it was awfully, the cold. The water was still could take your life at that point, if you're in it too long.
Oh, yeah.
And he'd gone up to like an island up there somewhere, and apparently thought that the boat didn't tie it up or get it, on the shore well enough or have it anchored, and the waves end up pulling the boat out, and now it's leaving him. So he's, this is my thing, and nobody's out there. Mm-hmm. Because it's November, so you don't have recreational boaters. You're like, okay, I'm stuck out here until either Game Fish and Parks finds me out here somewhere. Hopefully they're out looking, or someone notices there's a boat floating all by itself with no one in it. But his first reaction was, as the boat's floating away, I better run out and go get it. So he charges through the water, and like you said, you got all the stuff on. It instantly becomes wet, and now you're just like, you got a parachute. You can't move and you can't swim. It's just dragging you back. So once he got really wet, he realized, I'm not gaining any ground on this boat, and so this will either be me drowning or I get back out. So he got back out, and a similar deal. He went on the island and he started to look around. Somebody must have gone out there regularly and started a fire, and they had left matches and stuff. So he's like, it was 1 in a million.
Yeah.
And he said, so I was able to get something going and kind of warm myself up. And he says, and I was like, I don't know how long I'm out here. Is it hours? Is it days? Does someone find the boat, and where does the boat end up where anyone even finds it?
Yeah.
And so, there's a moment in time you're like, this could be a while. And so just
tumble down to matches.
Yep.
Shut
he says
up.
1 in a million. He says there was like an old building that was out there that somebody must have used at some point, and then I suppose somebody found it out there and thought, well, we'll come out here, maybe do shore lunch or whatever. I don't know, but he said it was there. 1 in a million.
That's lottery odds.
Yeah. He said I think it was the same day. I know it was. He didn't stay overnight, but the same day somebody got out there, saw a boat floating with no passengers in it, and said, okay, let's check this out. Hey, here's the guy. So they started to patrol, and they saw some smoke and some stuff and figured out that, okay, that's where he's at. Yeah. So they came and saved the day. But yeah. Anytime you go out on the ice, you just never know. And even when we talked about yesterday, you're going to set up you cut the big hole, Now you're going to set this thing up. It's just like a big tent. If someone that doesn't ever do this, my sons always call it, are you in a tent or are you in you call it the hard house. I call it the shack or whatever, but it's like, what'd you have? And I'm like, no, it's more like a tent. But if you aren't like focusing on where you're at, like you said, let's get way away from the hole and set this up. I could see somebody, if you're
that's why I said
kind of novice, let's just throw this thing up right over the hole. Now you don't know where it is and how close your feet are to it. The wind pulls you and you take one step and down the hole you go.
Wreck your day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And depending on how deep of water you're in, it might do more than wreck your day too.
It could.
Yeah.
Well, it's
big
like
enough
I
hole
told
there.
you, I'll get you out of
And
that
that's a
hole.
big enough hole.
But it's
Yeah.
going to wreck your day, and that's a little.
gonna
The
suck.
struggle then is at 3/4 mile
That would have been really rough.
in 20 mile an hour sub-zero wind.
Yeah, you'd have turned
Yeah.
into an ice block. And there really was there was only so far you would have ever dared to even take the Subaru to try even get close, to make it less of a distance.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd been a bad deal.
Yeah. Yeah, I wasn't going to
The buddy heater was going to the big buddy was going to have to do the job.
Right?
At least you had some shelter at that point, though. You
That's
could get it
exactly
set
how you
up.
play that one.
Yeah, you just stay in there until you're like, okay, we're making a go for this.
But even that, in that wind we were in, where you were new to it, it's like one of us has to have a hand on a handle at all times.
Right.
That gets away from you. No way you're catching it.
No, it's
You
gone.
got to go drive into Lake Preston and start searching fields because it's going to be gone and even pull you around.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. If it were on glare ice, if you don't have a lot of traction, it's taking you with it unless you're just going to let go of it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, if it gets tipped where it's catching the air, which scared me yesterday because I thought we were going down that. It looked like that might happen.
Right.
If it tipped that way, now it's just a big spinnaker.
Right. It's over.
You just
Let it go. And the other thing too is you talked about, we took a dead limb and you put it in the slush.
Yes.
To let someone know, hey, there was a big hole here. Mm-hmm. I don't know if everyone pays that much attention. Even if you were out there in the nighttime, you know what happens out when people are out ice fishing all day long. There's a lot of times there's cocktails and there's probably some guys that are local. That's another one where you're out there. If you're like, there's plenty of ice, there's 20 inches or whatever it might be. Mm-hmm. If you aren't paying full attention, you're going to drop your front end or whatever right in that deal. And that's a lot of force hitting that area. So it's like, does that hole just get a little bit bigger?
Yeah, that or it just drops down. But now try getting that truck out.
Yeah, good luck.
Yeah.
Like, you ain't going to get any traction.
So that's the etiquette, is to put your blocks back in for snowmobilers. That's more up in Minnesota.
Right.
That a buddy of mine hit one in his back in early 80s and real fast at night. And his shoulder's never been the same.
Right.
It's like hitting concrete.
Sure.
So you put those blocks back, but then you mark it so no one drives in it. So.
But it's like 80 mile an hour across there. You're never going to see it. It's the daytime. But we know what happens too. People like to go out and go night sledding and up and down rivers and go to the lakes and do those things. And it's like, there's way more danger out there than what you think. It looks nice and flat and you could just go do whatever you want. But unless you know what happened there 24 hours before, you're playing with your life.
I was looking for an update.
How are we doing?
Yeah. Where are we at? I
Probably
can't see that.
Probably about an hour.
We had about an hour. Yeah. Typical. We didn't hit any of the topics we thought we might.
What were we going to do?
Well, we were going to do some business stuff, but this was more fun.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
I mean, I got like 5 minutes. I can kind of air out my stuff.
I did an episode.
Yeah, I'm looking for just a little snippets for reels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, just for let's roll them.
Yeah.
Let's do them.
Just roll it.